Leaders of a group calling itself the Gauteng Shutdown Coordinating Committee say there needs to be a national dialogue on the impact of affirmative action on certain race groups. The human trafficking trial of Nigerian pastor Timothy Omotosho and 2 co-accused will start today in the High Court in Port Elizabeth. And votes are being counted in Cameroon following yesterday's presidential election, in which Paul Biya is seeking to extend his 36-year tenure as head of state. Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. The situation in coloured areas across Gauteng, including Westbury, Ennerdale and Eldorado Park, which saw a spate of protest action last week, remains calm this morning. Last week, residents from these areas embarked on a shutdown which turned into violent clashes with police in some areas. The committee says pickets will continue in some communities. On Friday, residents of Ennerdale and Eldorado Park took to the streets, blockading roads with rocks and burning tyres. They say crime and drugs continue to terrorise coloured townships, and they accuse government of neglecting these communities. Protests were expected to resume today, but the shutdown committee, or rather the Gauteng Shutdown Coordinating Committee, says there's been a change of plans. And Anthony Williams joins us now to tell us what those changes are. Good morning and thank you for coming through. What are those changes?
Good morning, thanks for having us. I think what has been going wrong is we've had all of these shutdowns in our communities. So that means that these communities are just disabled, there's no activity happening there, and then we are breaking down our own communities. I think the thinking now is different. What we said, what we must do is we must take the fight to the powers that be. They are sitting in the high echelons. They are enjoying the spoils, you know, of the liberation, and the masses of the people in this country, in particular those who have been classified as coloureds. They are sitting on the periphery, and we are not, equal participants in the economy of this country. We want part of this economy.
The initial demand was for the police minister, Pickets, to come and address you, and he did. You're not happy with the outcome?
No, we're happy. We thank the minister for coming out and doing what he's doing. But I mean, why should we have asked the minister to come out in the first place, you know? So it's not that we're going to sit around here and clap hands, you know, that Bekitele came in to do his work. Yeah. This is his work. We should not, nobody should be clapping hands because politicians have been given the mandate, you know, to govern on our behalf. We should not be doing that.
So when you say you're going to the higher echelons, are you going to Pretoria, to the union buildings?
It will ultimately culminate in that. But tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, we will be at the JSE. We are beginning to knock on every door, the economic powerhouses in this country, and we are strategically placed as those who are in Gauteng. We are going to knock on the door there. We are going to give them a letter of demand, an official notice that we are here, we want part of this economy. So it's much more than just safety and security. What you see in safety and security, you know, is because of what we call socio-economic exclusion. For as long as you exclude people from actively and substantially, you know, and meaningfully participate in economy, you're going to have drug abuse and all of that. So we don't want to address the surface stuff. We want to address the root. And the root cause of the evil in this country is that the economy is slanted towards a minority, and we are coming for whoever holds the economy because it's our economy. We belong to it. We are the children, in particular us who are called coloureds. We are the children of the First Nation. We want the economy. It's ours.
How do you classify this minority? Because the sentiment out there that you're taking an issue that most communities in South Africa struggle with anyway, and making it only a coloured issue.
You see, it's mischievous to think that we are running an agenda of separatists, you know, because I think that's been punted by some media houses or some personalities. We think it's very mischievous. We are absolutely not under no illusion that this is much bigger than just our own community. Yeah. So therefore, we're calling on everybody to come out and support, especially with the Blood Friday that we're coming up on this with this Friday. The issue is much more than just our community, and we are very clear about that. But what we are saying is, for a long time, this particular community has been perceived to be very passive and, you know, and very nonchalant, just laid back. And therefore, we are starting from where we are. And we are now inviting the rest of South Africa to join forces, because very clear there's an agenda against the poor and the working class in this country. And so therefore, collectively, we've got to come and we've got to push back, because we cannot allow for capitalists and white monopoly capital and monopoly capital, you know, and the neoliberal programs that the government has been pushing since the last 24 years. We cannot allow that to go untouched. We are going to contest the economy. That's what this contestation is about. It's not just about pure little groups of people who are saying we are not black enough now and we were not white enough in the past. People who talk like that, those people are uninformed. We need to educate them. You can't talk about not black enough and not white enough. Those are nonsense, you know, things that people are, it's just pure posturing. We are saying that we know that there has been an injustice towards the indigenous African people of this country. And we are clear that we have felt it more, at least in the last 24 years. That's the reason why we are going out on the offensive as so-called colored people. And we say the message of the so-called black people, they must join this thing, because they are also suffering, because they left those guys who are governing this country, they left them unchecked. Now we are all sitting on the sideline.
You say people have not been responsive previously. Do you think the drug lords are getting the message?
Well, I think so. You know, if you look at the arrest that's currently happening in Westbury, in particular, the entire drug lord cartel across the country, you know, is on high alert, because it's not just happening here. It's also our comrades out in the Western Cape. You know, there in Western Cape, there's a nice mix of everybody that's coming together, and we are part of the project in the Western Cape of the shutdown. So yes, absolutely, we are very convinced that those who have found themselves on the wrong side of the law are on full alert, they are on full attention. So that was the plan. So
these drug lords, are they people who are removed from the community, or are they part of the community, and where are they as these protests unfold?
They are there. Some of them are amongst us.
I know.
Some of them are standing right there in the midst while we are busy having discussions. They are standing there.
A colleague of ours saw some of the
exactly.
They were saying, that's a known drug lord, and everybody knows him, but they're protesting with him.
Right. They are standing right in the midst, in the mix of the people and so on. There's a very interesting revelation, right? Because these guys, many of these guys are feeding the community. So they're giving money to many parents and moms. Wow. You know, so what these parents are doing, they protect them. They protect their identity. So, but people know them. I mean, we were at the funeral of Heather Peterson on Saturday, where we were standing there. I mean, we could see the drug lords, these guys who are selling in Westbury. They were standing right there at the church, outside of the church. They were right there amongst us. So, but what we are saying is, we know them. They know who. They know that everybody in the community know who they are. They are on notice that the community and justice is coming for them.
This change of tack by the Gauteng Shutdown Coordinating Committee, was it brought about by Heather's funeral? Discussions there?
Absolutely. Part of it is about it's about Heather's funeral, but also because we have been activists for so many years. You know, the sad part is that a person like myself, you know, was mentored and come from the same branch as Jesse Duarte. You know, from the same time, and now you're gonna start all over again. So you ask yourself, you know, how is this possible that we could betray the vote of the people, you know, for personal gain? You see what the minister has now revealed. You know, they've taken our trust and they have abused it. And what we are now saying as the community, because some media asked me this morning, who is behind? Is there some other powers behind? We are saying that the people are liberating themselves.
Anthony, who are the colored social activists that we don't know that we should be talking about?
Well, there are many. There are people on the ground. There are people like Cheryl Pillay, who's doing sterling work in Eldorado Park. There are people like Sean McDonald's in Western Cape who are doing exciting work. There are people like Fadil Adams in Western Cape who's doing exceptional work. There are people here in Gauteng like Dean Rosenberg.
We're talking about drug abuse and social problems.
Yes.
What are the good stories coming out of there?
I think, and that's what the media has always neglected, is to tell the good stories. That these people in the community have been working tirelessly to, to reinvent the community. Yeah. There are a group of people now in Eldorado Park who's got a project called Make Eldos Big, Better Again. Yeah. So these are the kind of stories that's untold, and there's lots of them. But also on the government
side, there is development there. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go there, but just quickly, these new changes, let's recap them again so that the community can know how to get involved. Is there a website? Who can they contact?
They must contact the Gauteng Coordinating Committee. They must make sure that they find themselves at the JSE at 9:30 tomorrow. They must make sure that they find themselves at 9 o'clock on the Newtown Mary Fitzgerald Square. Yeah. That's where they must find themselves at 9 o'clock on Friday morning.
I've just been
because
told,
that's where we are going to.
I've just been told we can go on. We've
Beautiful.
got enough time. Now, I was driving through Eldorado Park the other day, and I realized there was massive development. Eldorado Park is now much bigger than it used to be. There's new houses, there's new areas. Is that positive or not really?
But those houses have not been allocated to the people of Eldorado Park, and that's the sad part of it. And it doesn't mean that that we are speaking against those who have been classified as blacks. Yeah. But those houses were earmarked for the people in Eldorado Park. If I'm telling you now that since democracy, not one house was built for the people in Eldorado Park. For 24 years, over 24 years, not one house was built for the people in Reveille. Not one house. Nothing has happened, right? It's like we stood dead still, since democracy. So this is the mistrust. This is the reason why even the Premier is pushing the last couple of hours. Is pushing for a meeting for this coming Wednesday. But we're pushing back. We're saying we don't want to speak to the Premier. The Premier must meet us on Friday morning, and thereafter we can meet and we can sit down with the Premier.
What are the areas that can be worked on immediately?
Immediately, Eldorado Park, Reveille, Westbury, Noordgesig, Gelukstall, Eden Park, Reiger Park, Eersterus, Nigel, these areas, Toekomsrus, Davidsonville, these areas are available, they are ready for activity and for action and for renewal immediately. There's lots and lots of leaders on the ground who's doing sterling work without a cent every single day. These guys are going out there and doing some sterling work,
so
and they are not getting...
not assisting in any way.
You know what government is doing? What they did in Eldorado Park? They took a couple of pastors, and they gave a couple of pastors, they gave them some money to put up skill center, but the community is falling apart. They're putting up the skill center, but the majority of the people are unskilled, Yeah. So what they do is what they're trying to do now, what David Makura is trying to do now. He's trying to call a few people on the side there in a little corner and says, no, we're going to deal with you. That one, because he's talking against us on the media, we are going to deal with him, we're going to ostracize him. But what he doesn't understand is that now
that's
the people...
That's a serious allegation.
It is, but that's what we are saying. And the Premier must come and answer, must come answer this, because we are putting it to him that he's divisive and he's deceptive, and he's calling some people in a little corner and he wants to discuss. You cannot do that, because there's a mandate from the communities. There were over 13 communities yesterday. So I can't take the trust of the community and go meet the Premier in a little corner outside of the mandate that we were given. We can't do that.
Talking about a mandate, how did the Gauteng Shutdown Coordinating Committee come about, and who is it made of? How do we know how credible it is?
Well, it's made of activists who has been knocking on the door, in particular of the provincial government, for a long time. Yeah. Many people will know of what happened in Eldorado Park, in particular last year, when we shut down Eldorado Park and Klipspruit and Noordgesig. People know that. And we've given the Premier a letter, and I personally am one of those people. In fact, my organization, IFNASA, we dropped the letter. We've got to prove, because it's stamped by his office. Yeah. He did not even acknowledge or respond up to this day. Now he wants to go in a little corner and discuss with us. We can't have that. These are seasoned activists. You talk about Kit Duarte, you talk about Majid, you talk about Yassim Hayat, you talk about Sheras, you talk about those people on the ground, who Neville Williams. These guys have been working every single day. Ronald Dyers, Bevan Shelton, you go through them, Shahim, Ishmael. The numbers are, I mean, there's not lots of them, but some of them try to discredit us. But we have been there. Our marks are there. There's enough trace there. You can Google us right now that we have been there and knocking on the door of government for so long. They just simply ignored us.
Let's just talk about the other side. I saw a report recently about the growing coloured middle class. Who are they and where are they in this conversation about the demise of the coloured community? And
that's the sad part. This particular group of people that we are talking about, the coloured middle class or the so-called black diamonds, these are people who have ejected themselves. They've ejected themselves from the community. They are distancing themselves from the community. I mean, we can give you lots of names. We can give you the name of, you know, we can give you those names. No, we're not scared. I think it's important that we put this on record. I mean, you take for...
But they're not necessarily harming everybody. They've just, as you say, ejected themselves.
They've ejected themselves and divorced themselves from the community to such an extent that they've become aloof. You know, these are untouchables. These are people who simply don't even want to listen. Let me tell you, when we knock on the doors of many of these so-called coloured business people, they simply turn a blind eye. You know who tries to help us? You know who helps us? White people. So-called white people, they come to our aid. They want to give us money. We don't want to take the money of those people called white people because it's going to compromise a legitimate cause. But those people who are so-called coloured people who are in business and who are sitting in government, they turn a blind eye and a blind ear.
Thank you so much for your time. Anthony represents his organization, but is also today representing the Gauteng Shutdown Coordinating Committee. I suppose we'll be talking to you a lot. You said the meetings are tomorrow and Friday.
Tomorrow it's JSE and Friday we are coming into Gauteng, the centre of Johannesburg.
So hope to talk to you then. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.